Right. I know this video came out a little bit ago, but I would be remiss if, as a self-admitted gooner, I wouldn't at least bring some attention to it, because I will not stand by having misinformation being spread around that gooning is bad for you. You know, as with anything in life, everything is good in moderation. If you want to goon, goon. But if you're gooning so much that you forgot to pay your mortgage and go homeless, then someone might think that you might have not necessarily a problem with gooning, but maybe an addictive personality disorder, or something such nature. What I'm trying to say is here, please don't stop gooning. It's literally how I pay my bills. That's what it's all about there.
I'm in the hallway of my dad's house and I walk past my stepsister's room. Stepsister calls me into her room because she has just discovered something very explicit for the first time that she wants to show me. So I walk in and she's very, very excited.
Okay, honestly though, if you have a sibling who is roughly the same age as you, there is a absolute definitive chance that one of you were the first person in your sibling collective, so to say, who discovered porn. Me and my sister had this, and it was a very interesting time in our lives. I found regular porn, my sister found hentai. And look how we turned out. Thankfully, though, it wasn't that weird.
First time ever seeing this stuff, she's litten up. And she tells me to take a peek. So I do. And little did I know what I'm about to view is going to be my absolute downfall. And
yo, regular corn for regular people?
I remember asking her, what is this stuff? What's it called?
Okay, do we all think that a video about gooning is going to be monetized? If this is monetized, I will eat my left sock.
Then I'm playing on the family iPod one day, and a pop-up pops up. A very explicit pop-up that I have seen something.
Okay, so as somebody who is like really well versed in psychology and human elements and the way the brain works, so the problem with being addicted to porn isn't necessarily that it's a problem with porn in of itself. It's a problem with the psychosomatic nature of the human mind. The way humans, some people just have an averse weakness to addictive tendencies. The thing is, if somebody didn't, like, the fact it's porn is just a thing. There is a reason why porn becomes addictive, because it's a easy stimulant that allows you to get a dopamine hit with no real effort, and the addiction comes from that small dopamine hit that can be achieved so easily. It's not that you're addicted to porn, it's the fact you're addicted to the rush that comes from it. And I use the word come, ironically. But this is the kind of person, if somebody's not addicted to porn, but they have an addictive personality, they will find something to become addicted to. People who have ADHD are twice as likely to get as addicted to something as somebody who is neurotypical. Addictive personality tendencies are something that people use to fill in for something, to try to get a dopamine hit for something. In fact, people with bipolar disorder, people with emotional stresses or disorders are more likely to become addicted to something. It's just porn is one of the easiest ones to do that because it's a stimulant, it's a visual stimulant, it's a mental stimulant for those who are sort of like terminally online. There's so many things that go into porn that cause you to get stimulation from it, and it's that stimulation that you become addicted to. But again, someone who's addicted to porn, if they cleanse their porn addiction, they'll likely become addicted to something else. Gambling, Pokemon cards, something to fill that dopamine hit. That's where this comes from. It's not because porn's bad, because it's the person has that tendency.
Similar to this before. So I click on it, and it's an extremely dodgy website.
Oh, dodgy.
But there's a lot of... So I start scrolling through the content, and I'm starting to get aroused now. I wasn't aroused before, but I'm aroused now. I don't know my potential yet, but we'll get to that. And I start discovering like the niche topics, the very, very niche topics. Now, these are disgusting to me now and to me then. Like,
at the same time, I mentioned this a while ago, like, I don't think you should judge, if someone's into watching porn, if someone's like averse to porn, I don't think it's bad to, I don't think it's like bad. It's like a preference, right? But the thing is, with being into porn, there's two paradigms here. You're either in the paradigm where you are so into porn that it becomes unhealthy, at which point intervention is needed because your life quality is being reduced because you're addicted to something. But on the antithesis, the other paradigm is where you're so averse to porn that you judge people who have that enjoyment of a healthy amount of stimulation in their life. And there is something of too much on both ends. Like, don't hate someone's stuff just because they're into it. Like, if somebody has their way of getting pleasure, who cares? Sex is a part of life. It's just the way it is. If they're not hurting you, and they're clearly not hurting themselves, it's fine. If they are hurting themselves, well, maybe it's time for a little bit of an intervention. And that kind of goes down the avenue of being the hater side of it as well.
And I remember about a week goes
Yeah, just don't
past,
shame
I'm
people.
bored, and I remember the videos that I saw that weren't the niche ones, they were just the normal ones, even though I wouldn't even call them normal. So I'll get in the habit of watching these around 2 times a week for 20 minutes.
Wow, one guess what he was watching. I'm not sure if, I mean, hey, listen, buddy, I get it, right? You know, we all go down the rabbit hole. First, we start looking up big boob porn, then that opens up the can of worms to finding hentai, then we discover what Rule 34 is. You know, when we play Overwatch for the first time and we see Tracer wiggle her tushy, and we're like, oh. Oh, okay. You know what? I wasn't expecting to feel things from this, but what if I combine my search history with Overwatch? Surely there's no one on the internet that would be as perverse as I am to have done that, right? Oh my god. Yeah, there's a deep rabbit hole. And the problem is, when you are addicted to porn, it's what I like to call the hentai furry artist commissioner paradox, where you delve so deep down the rabbit hole that you risk what's known as becoming desensitized, where you start up, you know, initially you know, you're a regular person, you know, you as a heterosexual male, you find the stimulation of, you know, jorking it to a regular person stimulating, you know? Obviously this is a girl, so we got to make them look like a girl because they got eyelashes and everything. But you know, as time goes by, all of a sudden that addiction no longer, like, you no longer find it as appealing to jork it, if you will, to the regular side of things. So all of a sudden, you know, you're suddenly into big boobs. And I'm sure you can see where this is going. And if after a while you become desensitized, so you go to unrealistic boob size, and then all of a sudden, you know, a few months passed, a couple of years passed, and you're no longer jorking it to big boobs. You're jorking it to hyper, and the character's got a big schweeness, and they're like some anime waifu with horns and a giant tail that's got like a penis on the end of it or whatever. And all of a sudden, you can no longer jork it to the mundane because you're so desensitized. And unless it's a triple dick nipple center with multiple rotary blades and missiles installed into its spine with the ability to fuck the entire world in a given sitting, you just can't get it going anymore. And that's the unfortunate slippery slope of addiction to smut and whatever, because it becomes a desensitization where you have to constantly elevate the level of stuff you're watching for risk of not getting the pleasure that you got before. So that's just a bit of an insight.
It's very interesting to me. It's very stimulating. I had no really reason to watch it. I was just learning a lot from this type of content.
And to the Twitch admin that's currently in my streams, I wish you a good hi, how'd you do?
I think I was anyway. And then I start liking
Oh god, dude, I am so lucky. So, I don't think I've ever been caught. Not properly. I know that, like, so when I used to live with my parents, my room's door wouldn't lock necessarily properly, but I found a way to keep it shut. The problem was there was a sort of like an opaque window sort of at the top of it. And there was one time where I was enjoying smut, where, yeah, so I know that at one point one of my parents was outside my door and I hadn't noticed, because I saw their silhouette outside. I don't think they knew what I was doing. But it was an inevitability that they would find out at some point, because I'm part of the problem. I became a porn artist. I was one of those people that drew smutty art for suspiciously wealthy furries. And still do. And eventually, and this is like the last little story I'll give for this video, my dad came in one day and saw that I was drawing a busty lioness with a 5-foot penis. My dad took one look at it, raised an eyebrow, and said, Makari, what are you drawing? A commission? And my dad said, oh, you're being paid for it? Yes. Oh, that's okay then. And he walked out. My dad has only ever cared if I'm doing something weird, that it's something I enjoy, and that I make money for it. My mum has always only ever cared that I'm doing what I enjoy. And more often than not, my mum would enjoy taking a look at what I drew. Of course, I wouldn't necessarily just go and show her porn, but she never really batted an eyelid if she came across some of the more unhinged stuff that I drew. The point is, I'm part of the problem, and if anyone has any validity to talk about someone who's addicted to pornography, it's someone who's drawn it for a living. If anything, drawing pornography for a living actually helped me resensitize myself, because after a while, I went so far down the rabbit hole of desensitization that I kind of came back out at the beginning, where I can just kind of look at porn and enjoy it for something creative, but it's also that moment of, you know, that's kind of hot. Like, it's such a wild concept. Like, people, like, I've gotten some comments occasionally, like, oh, you draw smart, man, you must be horny all the time. No, dude. No, I am so desensitized. I have trained myself so well that when I draw this kind of stuff, there's a difference between it being the profession side of things and me just actively wanting to goon. It's just the way of it. It is a skill set for porn artists that you will develop.
A very, very feminine girl. She has a very bold spirit.
God, I can only imagine for the people who are coming in at this exact moment.
The right word to use. I'm 12 years old. For her body, I am attracted to her because of her personality, her spirit. I find out this girl likes me, so we become boyfriend.
Anyway, that's all my stories. I'm going to try and just let this play out now. See what they've got to say.
To watch it at all.
Give me a subject and I'll natter for days about it.
I went a year watching it, maybe twice a week. No urge to watch it.
Twice a week?
Break up.
Pussy.
6 months in. Break up.
That's some low effort.
And 12-year-old, I'm a little sad for about 2 weeks.
TMI moment. At my peak, 12 times a day. That was the point in my life where it became detrimental because I was spending a certain percentage of my day just gooning.
Nothing crazy, but, you know, get your heart broken. For around 2 weeks, I was a little sad, but as 12-year-olds, our emotions are always fluctuating, so I was back to normal soon. And then, in the summer holidays of 2018 to 2019...
Yeah, someone in my chat made a comment that people are getting kind of numb to porn. There is an element of that where just generally in society, people are way more numb and desensitized to things like gore and violence and porn. Like, I remember, like, back in the day, and I say this ironically considering, you know, I'm a millennial, but, you know, even since when I was a kid, you know, you get exposed to so much of this so much younger nowadays, especially with how accessible the internet is with tablets and everything. Like, when I wasn't really exposed to this kind of stuff till I was about 15, 16 kind of thing. But, dude, people as young as 9 and 10 can get access to this now. So it's not really much of a surprise, the fact that when somebody's, like, 14, 15, they see, you know, Trace's butt hanging out on Rule 34 or whatever, and they're like, ha ha ha, bottom.
Property, play with the dogs. I just having a really
But the parents are like, oh, won't somebody please think of their children?
I'm bored. So, I think of this. I haven't been on these websites for like 7-8 months now. Let's do it again. And I start binge watching the content for hours. I stay up extremely late. And then I discover what I can do.
Oh no!
Holy shit. That was a feeling like unlike any feeling before. This video...
Yeah, it's that correlative thing. You discover porn, and it's like, ooh, that's kind of nice. But then you're like, wait, why does it do something to my pee-pee? Wait, can I do something with my pee? Whoa, wait a minute. Whoa, oh yeah, oh, that's the stuff, baby.
Might sound a little cringe to some people, but...
Okay, in like, if you started talking like this about anything outside of this subject, it would sound immensely cringe and terminally online. But in this moment, we can all take the maturity of knowing that this is a very valid thing. Because a lot of people suffer with this. A lot of people.
You will understand why I'm making
this is why a lot of nerds stink when they go to conventions.
I thought something was wrong with me. I didn't know
and then feel like they need to touch up cosplayers because they can't tell the difference between reality and the porn they watch.
Research I did, but I ended up finding out that it was a part of human nature and it was completely normal. So you implant someone like a 12-year-old in his mind that watching pornography is normal. I start doing it maybe once a week. Nothing crazy. I have really no time and energy to do it every day. But I start doing it once a week. And I go into high school and my confidence with women has dropped because I'm already pedestalizing them just a little bit. And porn became a way for me to experience deep connection with somebody.
So this is what I mentioned earlier about the psychotropa things, where porn of its nature is fantastical. It is a complete disconnect from reality. there isn't really porn unless it's amateur stuff that is based in like some semblance of reality, like especially like hentai. When you watch like professional porn, it's obviously like glamorized. The actors are all like exceptionally attractive models, and it basically puts this notion that people in the real world are not the same as the people in porn. So when you become almost like dependent on porn, this is what a lot of people end up with a problem with, where they can no longer find sexual attraction to real people because the only way they can find attraction is from the disproportionate body types and completely unrealistic body expectations of what they've seen in what they've been watching. It is a very psychosomatic and psychotropic thing. The way the brain stimulates, the way it conditions itself. Now, you can reverse that conditioning, absolutely, but it requires you to desensitize yourself. And when people have addictive personalities, trying to do that is like somebody trying to quit smoking cold turkey. It's almost impossible to do. Especially, like, again, it's obviously dependent on the mindset you have, like, depending on your neurodivergencies. People with ADHD, people who are more prone to addictive personality tendencies would find this impossible. And as somebody who has kind of experienced this to a degree, yeah. This is like the gateway to how a lot of... And not even just women, men and women have this issue. This is not just a man's problem. I know plenty of women who's had this issue. It's just the way the male mind works is more conducive to this problem. So you will have generally more men who deal with porn addictions more than anything else, because the way a man and a woman's brain stimulates through pleasure is very different.
Actually attaching myself to them and maybe risking getting rejected by somebody. I could
Yeah, why deal with real women when funny hentai lady on the internet can bounce her titties for me for a tier 3 sub?
Of human nature. I remember around, I'd say 3 or 4
God, imagine if
months of
VTubers
heavy
existed back
consumption.
then.
I can look back at it now and I can genuinely say that
Hi, Lenny.
I was manipulated by porn. Like it had
Yeah, absolutely.
screwed over my mind.
Again,
It had
replace
completely
the
rewired my
term
mind. I
porn
didn't
with
know this
anything.
at the time,
You can
but if
be
I look
addicted
back
to
at it now,
anything.
I definitely did. 100%. I would find it boring playing basketball with the boys on the weekend. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do that.
Yeah, why play basketball when you can get that dopamine hit from just jorking it, you know?
Talking to my friends, boring. Talking to a girl, couldn't do it, but I'd love to if I was confident. And of course, this was part of puberty as well. Men become, I guess, a little bit more lustful or more desirable for sex because they're maturing, right?
Well, there we go. There goes the monetization. Fantastic.
It's part of human nature, but it's the effect, not the cause, that was the issue. My grades started to go down because I had very, very little energy, and because I was very, very anxious, I wouldn't put my hand up in class anymore. You know,
it's kind of a scary thing, right? There's a bit of research that's been done that people who are terminally addicted, who are like chronically on TikTok, have the same level of burnt out dopamine receptors as people with addiction to porn. Because it's stimulating the same part of your brain. Like, I cannot believe we are in a world where TikTok does the same kind of damage to your brain that jorking it 15 times a day does. But at least if you're watching TikTok, you know, you've got visuals, and it's the same. It's the same problem in a different format.
I didn't know something, I wouldn't ask a question on it, meaning I would probably get it wrong. And as we grow old, my friends start talking about it. You know, they start talking about how they watch it, and
hold my beer and watch this!
Now I know it's even more normal. I'm not the weird fuck anymore, you know? But I could never admit that I watched it. All my
it's kind of crazy that he feels weird about talking about this.
I could never admit I watched it.
I feel like there's a big, especially in like American culture, I feel, and depending if you're in like more religious parts of America, even in England actually we get this. If you're in more religious parts of the world, you know, the idea of masturbation and everything and anything sexual related is very demonized at a young age. Like you're considered an outcast, a freak, a weirdo if you've even considered sex or looked at your penis at once in your life. And it's the other end of the spectrum where too much of one side can be as problematic as the other. Like that being brought up with a family that will demonize the idea of pleasure and sex and whatever, that will cause as much problems for the kid mentally as too much of an addiction to that.
I went from completely despising pornography, couldn't even look at it,
And yet,
now,
without it, we
when I'm
wouldn't
13 years
exist.
old in
So,
7th
you know.
grade, that's the only thing on my mind. But I remember a year goes past. It's early 8th grade. And this is a very, very significant event because I remember it just like it was yesterday. My family and I are going out for lunch. I think it's lunch. It's not dinner, it's lunch. There's probably maybe 10 of us there. Yeah, the whole family, aunties, uncles. And I get sat around 10 meters away from a really physically attractive woman. And she looks like the women I watch on these porn videos.
Yes, so that's where the problem comes in, because you're no longer just able to discern the difference between reality and the internet world you preclude to. Yep, this is when you know you've got a problem. This is when there needs to be intervention. But because
exactly
everyone's
like
conditioned into believing that, you know, this kind of stuff needs to be private and whatever, no one's going to talk about it. Because no one will know you have a problem until you end up on a list. No one will know you have a problem until you're in jail. Could have been stopped. But there's not enough sort of support or awareness or education for this kind of stuff. So, you know, until there's a systemic change, this kind of stuff will happen all the time. Because no one's willing to talk about it.
How's school going? How's basketball going? Right. All the questions you ask. And I just give one-word answers because I'm constantly looking at this girl. I wasn't that down bad that I was going to go bust one off in the bathroom. I was never that down bad, luckily, but I was very close to it. And I remember that day after we finished lunch, I'm on the way home and all I'm thinking about in my head is just women, women, women. I want a girl, bro.
I mean, to a degree, this does just sound kind of normal.
That's all I want to do. So,
like, there are just people who are just generally more hormonal.
I have completely gone from an innocent kid or
I mean, there are plenty of people who like, even as adults, that let their hormones do the talking for them.
24/7. And this caused me to do it anytime I went out in public. So anytime I'd go out in public, I would do it beforehand, especially before my basketball games. Because I would usually get distracted in my basketball games from someone sitting on the sideline or something like that. So I did it before.
Okay, that's the other thing, right? Oh, and for guys out there, this is a guy-only problem, right? The amount of guys I know who have trauma stories of getting unwanted boners at the most inappropriate times. Just like spontaneous boners. You know the ones I'm talking about? Like, oh boy, I can't wait to get up in front of my class and talk about my school project. Oh no, unwanted boner. I wasn't even watching porn. Oh great, now everyone gets a lot. There was actually a point in one of my schools, in my high school. I remember this, like, the back of my, like, as clear as day. There was this poor guy who was one of the jocks of the class. And he was a very well-liked guy. He wasn't one of the nerds, because if this would have happened to one of the nerds, they would have been bullied irreparably for it. But this happened to one of the jocks, and he got called up to do his presentation, and he wouldn't get up. And he sat there. And the teacher was like, get up, come on, front of the class. And he was like, teacher, I can't. And the teacher's like, why not? And you sit there in that moment and you're like, how the hell do I say this without letting people know, obviously? But he's like, teach, I'm going to be honest, my leg really hurts. Like, he's trying his best to make it play off like it's like he's hurt himself. But the teacher comes over and it's like, I don't care. You got in here. And he says, no, teacher, no, do you want to see? The teacher comes over and he leans in and is like, and you can obviously tell at the moment he's saying like, yeah, no, I can't do it. I've got a fucking erection. So the teacher then goes away and the teacher's like looking a little bit flummoxed and is like, okay, we'll get Jeremy up here instead.
For that. And I didn't realize this at the time, but it was playing a lot into my performance. I was getting more tired. I felt less athletic. I didn't know this, but I realized this when I started to realize it was bad for me, which I'll get to in a minute. So I'm increasing the amount of time I'm doing it now. Went from maybe
I feel like
week,
that's probably the trap as well.
I wouldn't do it before school because school was kind of a familiar environment. I'd only do it when I went out
using
really
the Gooning sesh as a solution doesn't really help. In fact, it actually makes it worse.
Tired during the middle of year 8. Like very, very tired and very, very anxious as well.
Like,
So I went to the doctor.
the way the mind works is you say, hey, I'll goon now. That way I don't have to worry about getting the, you know, unwanted hormones. But what that does psychotropically is it's sending your brain down into this pit of hormonal apathy. And the problem is as well, sure, if you the polarized nature here is that on one hand, if you don't, you might have, you know, you might be quite hormonal while you're out, but it's actually much worse to try and deal with that too frequently, because what happens, jerking off is extremely taxing on your body. Like, a climax tenses almost every single muscle in your body. It's a massive bodily spasm. It takes a huge amount of energy. It is immensely brain frazzling. It can be like very mentally draining. And not only that, you're losing fluids. If you do resort to gooning, you know, there's a reason why you get an afterglow. That afterglow is your body going, whoa, dude, that was whoa, okay. That's your body trying to recuperate. That's your body trying to get back into a normal homeostasis. So it's actually like the biggest trap almost to use the gooning sesh as a solution for your problems, when in reality, you're better off just going out without doing it. Because then what's happened to this guy is what's going to happen to you. You then become reliant on it. You're like, well, it's like again, a very similar scenario with smoking. You start using it as the designator of things. Like, oh, I'm going out, I better jerk off. You know, I'm going out, I better have a smoke. I'm going to have dinner. You know, I'm going to have dinner means I'm going to jerk off. You know, you start using it as the flagstone of your day. You start using it as a hallmark for things, and then it becomes a habit. Then it becomes an addiction. It's a rabbit hole of cause and effect.
Prescribe me any medicine or whatever. My diet was kind of shit. My sleep was shit. Basically everything in my life was bad, and I had very, very low self-confidence, which I guess contributed to that issue a little bit. But I'm no doctor.
Again,
I don't know.
it's like
But if I
anything.
look
A
back at
health.
it today,
It's okay to do it.
I think
It just has to be done a
root cause
healthy
of all that
amount.
was my porn consumption. I might be wrong, but this is just from my experience. Now, this is probably the biggest part of Jack Pickett law that my real fans will know. I tried out for a best 2 scouts that would allow me to play college basketball, D1 college basketball one day. Now, I try out for this team. I don't watch porn. I don't do it. I think it's like 2 or 3 days before the tryout. I don't even want to do it. I'm just constantly thinking about what I can do.
It's kind of weird because I see a lot of like refractions on experiences I had when I was growing up.
Do pretty well on the first tryout.
Albeit my
if you want to go deeper into
mental
this
chemistry is probably a
story,
bit different
I'll
considering
leave this video in the description because I go into it pretty in detail there. But basically, after the 4 tryouts, I get cut. I haven't done it for about 2 weeks, so I have maybe the biggest urge ever when I get home. Ever. I've decided to give up on basketball at this point. I'm not going to do it. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm not good enough. I'm never going to...
You know, some people might consider, hey, giving up on your dreams to become a professional gooner. Some people see that as a condition. There are, however, immense degenerates out there that would see that as an absolute win. I mean, look at VTubers. That's the entire notion of becoming a VTuber.
We're going to make the NBA. So I start watching it every day. Now I start watching it twice a day. Now I start watching it three or 4 times a day. Now we're in lockdown, so I stick with that for 3 or 4 times a day.
Oh God!
I get up.
Oh God! Lockdown was the best and worst thing to happen to the porn industry. Dude, this is the problem, right? People who are not savvy with being indoors on a regular basis, like the lockdown to the average gamer was like, oh, so just another normal day then, right? Like, hey, by the way, guys, we're going into lockdown. Now you need to stay inside for 12 hours a day. You're not allowed to go outside. To me, wow, so just another day, right? Just another day. Meanwhile, every Tom, Dick, and Joe, Andy who works a 9-to-5 job and only plays games for 2 hours on the weekend, they're like, no, what am I supposed to do for 12 hours in a day? I mean, well, okay, here we go. Zip.
I do it. I go play some more video games. I do my schoolwork I need to do for the day, which is maybe 2 or 3 hours in lockdown. I do it again. Video games, do it again. Video games, do it again before I go to bed.
And then you enter the horrible situation where you're conditioned that now you're, when you pop the cork of being addicted, of watching Rule 34, now you can't even play video games because you see a sexy character come on the screen. You're like, ooh, that's a sexy character. Damn, that skin-tight suit that Trace is wearing. Ah, shit. So then the addiction starts affecting the things you're doing to get away from the smart.
It's a cycle for, I think, around 3 months, 3 or 4 months. And I start noticing that my skin starts getting really pale. Not a lot of pimples. I'd maybe get a pimple or two, because I think that's mostly, I guess, your diet and how much water you drink and your hygiene. And I'm no doctor.
Getting out in the sun. So, wild story. Vitamin D, kind of important. You need the sun. Like, this is why basement dwellers end up with anemia and other issues. The sun isn't just about getting a tan. You need that vitamin D. Vitamin D is really good for you. Helps nurture your body.
Doctor, though, don't listen to me. But I felt extremely, I looked extremely pale and I felt extremely drained because I was doing it so much. And I think everyone wants to look attractive, so I started looking up online, how can I get my skin more smooth and maybe more tanned and look more attractive, look more vibrant.
Oh God!
Of course, I wanted women attention.
He's gonna start.
Naturally do it with somebody. I didn't want to just do it on pornography. So I started researching ways, drink more water, get more sun.
He's gonna start Chad maxing.
Eat a bit of diet, all this type, new skincare, all this very, very simple.
He's gonna start mewing.
And I try these out, and they do work a little bit, but I still feel pale and drained. It feels like I'm sick all the time.
Oh God, dude, it's so weird when I see people with a concave chest cavity. That's such a weird thing. Like, I know that's like perfectly normal. Like I say, normal. It's like it's an abnormality within the chest formation, but I've seen some people with it, and it's such a bizarre thing to see. Like, it is just something that happens to like 1 in 5 people, I think. But there was a guy in my high school who had like such a severe case of it, you could put your entire fist in his chest cavity.
I feel sick, but I look it. Now, this is where this video gets a little bit, I guess, not controversial, but it's not completely fact. It's just from my experience. I looked at these people. This is no disrespect to anyone.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. So someone in the chat just asked, yeah, gooning does cause problems with your skin. Like I said, it's an entire body spasm, but in so doing, you're doing something immensely, active. You sweat. You will sweat, no matter what you do, girl or man. And because you're doing this action, your body is so there's a multitude of things that gooning will cause your skin to look pasty and give you pimples and whatever. So what happens is it's a twofold thing. You sweat more and you activate your hormones. Your hormones are something that causes your skin's health. These hormones will race around your body. They activate your sweat glands. They produce more sebum from your skin. The more hormonally active you are, the more active your skin becomes. So not only are you sweating more, but all these hormones and whatever that are in your sweat now are seeping out and just actively being produced because you're constantly active. And the thing is, the more active you become, the more your body feels like that's what it needs to do. So you start getting these zits, you start getting unhygienic, and jorking it does just make you make you dirty. Like that, it is that a factual thing. Like there is a reason why you shower daily or every other day, because when you've gone out walking, when you've sweated, it's sat on your skin, and that can cause blemishes, infections, whatever else. That's why, when you enter puberty, you get all these spots all over your face, because that's the hormones going through your body, doing their thing. It's the same thing with jorking it too much. You're causing your body to essentially pump endorphins and adrenaline and hormones around your body at a rate that really shouldn't be the case.
I looked at these people who were giving me advice on clear skin, and they had clear skin, but they didn't have
Show me some mewing. Show me some mewing.
Vibrant. I see some people and their skin is vibrant. Their skin wasn't that. No one ever mentions semen retention. So, because my feed on YouTube is mostly this skin care type of stuff, self-improvement now, I come across this video from a YouTuber called Gabe Got That Glow. He doesn't make content anymore, or he might haven't really checked out his channel for a while. But this guy is the definition of a Giga Chad. Jacked, the smoothest skin I've ever seen.
Oh. That is immensely confusing to look at. Normally when people have big bushy beards like that, they're kind of rugged looking with wrinkles and chiseled jaws and... Huh. I'm not knocking it. It's just...
Seen in my life.
I'd love to see what he looks like without the beard.
Video is no fap plus cold showers for 30 days equals next level glow. Now the OGs will remember when I saw this video. I click on it. I don't know what no fap is at this point. I discover that it's no porn and no jacking off.
Why fap when you can gift subs, right?
So I'm like, this is the cheaper. This is what I've been doing so much. This is why I haven't been able to get vibrant, clear skin. Now, some people believe that semen retention doesn't do anything. Some people believe it does.
What's that, Abyss? Thank you for that raid. Sorry, you raided in a really weird time.
I believe it did a little.
We're having an educative session where we're talking about gooning and the implications therein.
We'll have this surge
Mods,
of
shout them out.
motivation to quit. I'm never going back to this shit ever again. But I haven't discovered how hard it is going to be to actually quit this stuff. And then I do it the next day.
And there you go. You are watching somebody have the exact same reaction to quitting jerking off addiction that somebody who has a smoking addiction would have. Quitting an addiction, no matter what it is a physically and mentally taxing thing. You will have, in fact, I would be daring to say that quitting gooning, like quitting a gooning addiction, is actually more taxing than quitting a smoking addiction. It would honestly be, like, okay, if we look up the severity of quitting an addiction, like at the top of the spectrum, like on this spectrum of severity, so up the top is like really severe pain, like how severe the quit is, and less severe. So down here is less severe, up here is more severe. So at the top of the spectrum, you'd have be something like quitting heroin, like quitting a class A drug. At the bottom, you know, you're looking at maybe, I don't know, sugar. You know, and even that might actually be more than the bottom. Like, maybe down at the bottom would be more like your psychosomatic addictions, sort of like habit-based addictions. Like you can't stop, I don't know, eating an apple at the beginning of the day. Habit addictions. These are the things that don't necessarily have a physical effect on your body, but they are a mental addiction. They are something that has become so ingrained in your day-to-day routine that not doing them in that morning would be unfathomable to you. Yeah, things like nail biting, things that are sort of ingrained in your daily routine. Then it's things that are more sort of effective to your physical body. Things like what you eat, what you drink, what you smoke. You know, sugar is definitely one of them. Sugar is a drug. Sugar is something that like big corporations rely on you being addicted to, so you keep buying their products. It is put in so many foods to make you addicted to them. McDonald's, for example. Then square in the middle, you know, smoking, I would say. Because it's a drug, it's smoking, then probably alcohol a little bit above that. But the thing is, and the reason why I'm going to say that jerking off is a much more an addictive thing is because of the physical strain. Alcohol and smoking, it's not only just a habit, but it's the chemical addiction in your body. There isn't much physical to it, though. Not in the grand scheme of things. Like, you have the withdrawal symptoms, you have that dependency effect, and arguably it depends on your physiology. Like, for some people, quitting smoking, quitting alcohol might be worse or less, depending. This is obviously generalizing. Like, so when I was younger, I smoked. I did. I would smoke 4 or 5 cigarettes a day. And the thing is, I have a very strong sense of will. So when I do something, I do it out of almost the boredom of it. So when I was smoking 5 cigarettes a day, I just one day I just said, hey, this isn't really doing it for me anymore, and I stopped. I had maybe like 2 or 3 days where I had the temptation, because it wasn't the smoking, it wasn't the tobacco that I was addicted to. It was the fact that I'd been doing it so consistently. Like, wake up, have a cigarette. Do my morning artwork, have a cigarette. Finish my stream, have a cigarette. It was such a ingrained habit that it wasn't the actual smoking that I was addicted to, it was the habit. Which is why this was so easy for me to do, because this wasn't the addiction, this was. But whereas with gooning, this is such a heavy mix of everything. You have the hormonal addiction, you have the physical addiction, the habit addiction, there's the mental addiction of being stimulated by things you watch. there are so many other elements that goes into this that it would be infinitely... You are trying to have so many extra points of failure to try and remove that addiction from. Your body has gotten into a habit of having these hormones in your body. Your body's gotten into an addiction of being at a certain level of stimulation at all times. So it is... I arguably, maybe someone could prove me wrong, but I would be, dare to say, for a lot of people with a true gooning addiction will find it harder to quit gooning than alcohol or smoking. At least, I don't know, maybe I'm talking bullshit. Maybe I'm talking out of my ass, but maybe that makes sense to some of you guys.
Because I can't beat it. It's at night. It's a really strong urge. Again, I'm doing it 4 times.
And then, like, you know, near the top, above heroin, watching Makari. Makari, you can't quit me.
And I do it again
I'm in your life forever.
And I just can't beat that urge at night. It always comes. I can't beat it. And after around 3 or 4 months of this constant cycle, I'd get to maybe day 4, and I'll just relapse. After 3 or 4 months of this cycle, this is another part of Jack Bigot law. I did it 8 times in a single day. Now,
okay, now he's up to my levels when I was at my peak.
I don't look at it as cringe because it was an effect of a really deep cause within myself.
And what the worst part is, the more addicted you are, the more of a yo-yo effect you have. Like, the rebound effect of failing. So, you know when somebody gets addicted to alcohol and they get clean? So when somebody gets addicted to this point, if they break that addiction, they will overindulge so much that they'll be worse off than when they started. And that means that it'll be worse for them. They'll realize it's worse for them. They'll become self-deprecating. They'll become depressed, and they'll try and fix themselves. But the trouble is, now you've increased that length between your baseline homeostasis and how addicted you become. So you have even more of a challenge to try and get back to that sense of normality. And it becomes this horrible yo-yo effect where, unless you are really strict to fixing the problem, chances are every time you fail, the rebound will make the challenge infinitely worse. This actually plays much more into the drug side of things than anything else, but it can infinitely be as detrimental as for the gooning side of it as well. Which is what he's currently experiencing.
Some people who don't understand, you know, what corn addiction can do.
And it
will just cringe at
also
that.
kind of elements that thing of, like, you start gaslighting yourself. Like, hey, I did this thing. I better reward myself with a gooning sesh, you know? Or it's been a few hours. I better have a gooning sesh. You know, if I don't have a gooning sesh now, when will I fit it in?
You know, you drain everything out of you, you know? But the positive to that was that I knew I was never going back.
The thing for a lot of people, and neurodivergent people have a lot harder time with this. The way you tend to beat addiction is by filling the time. You break one of those sort of foundational points of addiction. You find something that will break the habit, something that will, like, when you want to break smoking, people don't necessarily stop smoking, they just swap to a vape, which breaks the chemical addiction. You're still addicted and you're still doing something that's kind of that, but it's one step down the avenue. And once you're no longer addicted to the harsh chemicals, you can take it a bit more of a slow pace to try and fix the other side of things. It's about giving yourself the stepping stones.
Planted that image in my mind.
Yeah, you know, having a hobby, doing something to distract yourself. You notice that the second he stopped doing basketball, it spiraled.
The last time I did it, I couldn't even get to sleep that night. Right? And I made it a promise I was never going to do it again. So I go a week without it.
Don't do it. Just do it within reason.
Haven't even viewed it. Haven't touched it.
And that's the thing. Like, if you completely stop cold turkey, this is the problem with people who have very low self-will, self-esteem, or like bad commitment traits, is that if you instantly go cold turkey, it is such a whiplash of stopping rather than slowly reducing it to a point that's more reasonable. Like, the better way of doing it, especially, like, seeing as gooning isn't necessarily bad. Like, gooning is actually very healthy for you. It helps prevent prostate cancer. But there is a point where it's too much. So rather than stopping cold turkey, it's better off to just, like, slowly lower it. Like, it's less like drinking alcohol. Like, I'd never encourage drinking alcohol, but sometimes having a drink is nice. But there's a point where there's drinking sociably, acceptably, versus becoming an alcoholic. And it's better to slowly reduce that and limit yourself and then find a place that's more healthy for you versus just going cold turkey. Because if you drop cold turkey, then you get that issue where you're more likely to fail because the addictive tendency has become too hard to resist.
Haven't done it in a week. I feel very productive. I have more energy, not a lot of energy, but more energy than I used to have. And I should be on top of the world because I've beaten my 4 days I used to always relapse on. But
see how he uses the term relapse? There's so much terminology here that would be used for drug addiction. That's why I keep saying it's so similar. Addiction is a unifying element. Doesn't matter what you're addicted to. Addiction is addiction.
Self-love, right? But I feel the least of that because my mind has been corrupted.
Like, how crazy is it that self-will is never really apparent until you need it, and then you realize how weak you are.
I've always needed someone external from those porn websites that are fake to fill that void within myself. And I battle this demon for the next week, so I'm 2 weeks off it. I'm proud of myself, but I can't let it go away. I'm not going to compare this to a drug addiction because I'll never have one.
No, do it. It is. I've never had a drug addiction, but it's not even about the drug side of it. It's about the foundations of what makes an addiction. It's the psychological effects. You don't have to worry about, like, the thing is that it's a separation of things. Addiction is mental. The physical effects are from the ingestion or the stimulant. The thing with gooning is that whereas drugs and alcohol and things that are a physical addiction, or rather a neurotic addiction, I can't remember the word for it. Being addicted to a drug, something that's harmful to your body, you have another element to quantify what is effective, what it's doing to you. But because it's so obvious that those are bad for you, because there's this separation that gooning is just, hey, it's a natural part of your day, it's hard for someone's brain to say it's on the same level as drugs, for example. But it is. It is. Because it's not the harm that you're trying to quantify it by, it's the addiction that you're quantifying it by. So I respect why he says that, but it's not accurate. You can absolutely compare it to drugs, even without having been a drug addict.
But people mention, like, the withdrawal.
You may not have as much of a basis of knowledge, but you can still compare from what you know and research.
I guess it's similar.
What you can quantify is the addiction you see and feel.
Is watching this video, let me know if those were withdrawal symptoms.
Yes, absolutely,
because
100%.
But I might be completely wrong. I'm just a fucking guy yapping on the internet. But it was that strong that
Thing
I
is,
saved it.
and this is what I mentioned earlier, right? Like, this is the kind of stuff that schools need to teach you about.
I was so lonely.
This is the kind of stuff that I wish
and I only felt more lonely
young adults and teenagers would learn about. Because it's the kind of stuff you never really find out until you fucked around and found out yourself. If people had preparation and a bit of knowledge for this in their younger years,
I can do this for the rest of my life.
It would help them so much when they have to face it.
These initial stages. I don't know how I'm going to do it.
Thing is, you know, most, like, England, Europe,
every day.
Maybe not all of Europe.
I just call them lies.
A lot of American education systems and English education systems, all they're doing is trying to give you an education to push a button. They don't give a shit about your personal well-being so long as you can get the grades.
It's only going to delay it further. I'm just going to feel it next week if I do it now. I have to go through this if I want to grow. So I make it a month, and I start to see some of the benefits.
A whole month.
Talking about increased energy. I'd say increased confidence because I've gone 30 days off something that I was heavily addicted to, but I'm yet to see clearer skin. I can see a little bit of it, but not much. I'm not glowing yet, which was the main reason I was doing this. So if I didn't get that benefit, honestly, I probably would have gone back.
You know what this is? This is getting a cough and Googling what my symptoms are. Never take the advice of something medical from somebody who does not have an education in that system. This is like saying, oh, I've got a cough, better Google what this means. Oh, well, you know, I have cancer. According to the internet, I have cancer. Great.
And now this is the biggest challenge I ever had.
No word of a lie. I had a slight chest pain a few weeks ago, and I was like, oh, that's a bit weird. Probably just a pulled muscle. I'll Google what it means. Top of the list. heart palpitations, heart attack, fucking anemia, you're dying, you've got cancer, you've got chest thrombosis, you've got fucking a bleed of the heart. Not the more likely things, which is just like, oh yeah, you pulled a muscle.
Day 40, 50, I'm not too sure. I can't really remember. But it was in between 30 and 60 days. I remember
Yeah, like, that doesn't
I
mean
got
doctors
my name
can't be
pops out again.
clueless. It's just doctors are less
I don't think
likely to be
anything of it.
clueless.
I think it's just going to be normal.
You would think.
I've completely... I've
Less
got rid of
clueless
suspicion
than
now.
somebody
The
than an
smooth
online
skin's
person with no
starting to
credentials.
maybe come in a little bit.
Generally.
But I hop into that bed again. That same bed where I discovered what I could do, my potential. And it hits me, bro.
And this right here is what happens when you're a smoker in remission and you are doing so good and then you hang out with that other friend that's a smoker. They light one up and that temptation hits. You're reminded of the smell, the feel. You can't tell them to stop. It's their choice. If they were being empathetic, they'd be like, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I won't smoke. I know you're trying to quit.
I remember the feeling, the first time ever, how it felt so good. And I was ready to do it. So I opened up the hub and I was scrolling through the videos. My heart was beating.
You know, I have a question. What does this guy usually make? I've never seen this guy before. I feel like this is like such an outlandishly different video to... So he's like a blogger? Or something? Interesting. I remember watching YouTubers like this so much back in like the early 2010s. Yeah, I used to watch people like this all the time. Interesting.
It really was rock hard, and I was just sweating. I was like, because I went from doing it so many times to not doing it at all. Right, the urge is going to be so big, but I couldn't get myself to do it. I couldn't get myself to do it. I'm not going back to day 0 because I know the.
I suppose that's kind of what you're looking for, right? You're kind of looking for that moment where you say to yourself, "Hey, I've quit it.
I know it.
I've quit it."
This pain of not giving in is going to be so much better than the pain of regret. I battle that urge all night. I can't go to sleep. I mean, I don't even think I slept that night. I can't, but I'm not doing it. I am not doing it. I promise.
The Blade Runner sequel, for as weird as it was, had some of the best memes that came out of it. God damn, I love this.
Myself.
Watching him lose his shit and his reactions in this were just some of the best memes imaginable.
I don't know where I'll be.
Also tangible, thank you for that follow.
So I wake up the next morning, I get up, I can't remember, but I remember the urge slowly fading away. I get up, I go for a walk, I go play some basketball, I talk to my grandparents. And I get little urges from here on in, but they start getting a lot smaller now. And my skin starts getting a lot better. I start really glowing. Now, if I have any pictures, I'll put it up here. And I want to get back to that. My sleep's
To be fair though, he looks healthy, right? I don't think he's really got a problem. Like I think maybe you've sort of gaslit yourself so much into thinking you're not looking at it, there's an issue. Like what he thinks is like an 8 is more likely to be a 3 in terms of severity. I think he looks fine.
So I start telling my friends about how I've quit it, how I've quit porn, and I don't know if that was a good decision to make or not, but I told him. And I remember one of my mates, just for fun, or I don't know if he was being serious or not, he showed me it in class. It was like a kind of a test to see if I was gonna enjoy it or not, want to watch it. But I look at it, and I don't want to look at it again.
I almost fear that maybe this went down the wrong avenue, where there is a healthy amount that you can take in this kind of content. But now, I almost feel like there's gonna be a sentiment here where he's kind of done damage to himself, where he's now, and maybe this isn't like a bad thing per se, but I almost feel like he's now gonna have this negative connotation towards sex and sexualization and just anything in that realm of plausibility, which, to be fair, might be the healthier. It might be a lesser of two evils, but it's actually still pretty damn damaging, Because now he's got a negative view towards sex and people and anything around that.
This might, I don't want to tear up, bro, and this won't be tears of sadness, this will be just tears of emotion. But I felt like a kid again. I felt like my 10-year-old self again, bro.
Ah, Jonas, welcome in.
And I realised when that came, when that moment came, I realised I'd beaten her. I realised I'd beaten her. And I was extremely proud of myself. I was.
He may have beaten it, but he still has healing to do. He needs to, at this point, he needs to then have a healthy understanding of it. I mean, if there was two choices, if you were to abstain from that and just say, hey, you've beaten the addiction, cool. But the next step would to then be to have a healthy view of sex and porn and everything else, knowing that you've beaten that, you're not going to slip into it again, not being afraid of that. Because those kind of things are just part of your life, and it would be almost as damaging to not allow yourself some level of healthy dosage of that.
Because I'd come a long way. My confidence wasn't there with women yet. I was still very, very nervous because I'd never really talked to girls. I've built that confidence up over the last, I'd say, a few months, 100%. But the most important part of the video is now, the most important part of the story, and this genuinely might make me tear up, bro, honestly, because it's...
Ultimately, really I think this all comes down to responsibility. You are responsible for your life, and you are responsible for what you do. If you want to goon, absolutely goon away. Goon to me, goon to my porn, goon to everything in the world, goon to VTubers, goon to whatever the fuck you want.
But
if you goon too much, you gotta be responsible for that.
Maybe 6 months after I was off it, I was sitting outside of my nan's house that I discovered what I can do at their house. And I was just sitting out there looking at the sunsets, nature, just having a conversation with her, just about life. I could never do that, bro. Never. I could never connect with someone like that because of my porn addiction. Because I was doing it so much. I sat there for 3 hours.
Oh my god, you didn't. Someone in the chat just said, with great porn comes great responsibility. Holy! I mean, you're not wrong, but you couldn't have made it more poetically cringe. Oh my god.
Just not stop smiling. Because of that.
I love it. I love it. That's honestly, if that's the way you take away from this, so be it.
It was because
with great pornography comes great responsibility.
Relate to me, and you don't find this cringe. You understand that.
No, it's not cringe. Legitimately, I think there needs to be better education for this kind of stuff in life. Because holy shit, the amount of people who go through that, especially like, again, I don't want to make this a men have it worse thing, but for mental health and just general well-being, men don't get taken seriously for when they're in trouble. Like usually all this like. There's never enough like consideration for the mental health of men, especially. That is just a fact of the healthcare that we in Western society, like sort of more socially developed countries live in, where men will suffer silently because they are convinced and told that reaching out for help is weakness, and that as a man you should be strong and always strong, and that asking for help is a sign that you are not a real man. Like, everyone has their struggles. Everyone's struggle is valid. It's just there's not enough support for men, generally.
Negatively. It's worth it. It's worth it to quit.
And I know they're going to be like, oh, but women... Yes. No.
If you're anything like me...
Saying that men need help does not make a women's suffrage any less valid. Everyone's suffrage is valid. Everyone's. But the problem being is that men's suffering isn't as acknowledged. That's the problem.
You have these withdrawal symptoms, especially if you've been addicted to it for a long time. And it hurts, bro. You don't have someone next to you, right? You maybe don't have the confidence to go up and cold approach.
I mean, maybe, you know, about the gooning thing, it's a bit of a whatever. But like, this is just generally, right? Men don't get taken, men don't generally get acknowledged when they're struggling, or rather, they're not willing to look for help.
Remind yourself
because of how society tells them that they shouldn't.
I feel today is the strength if I feel tomorrow. If I let go of this pain right now, by giving in, I'm not going to feel that strength tomorrow.
Ultimately, man or woman,
it's worth it.
You are struggling. Yet find help, and if you can't, if there's no one around who will listen, find the places that will. There are always going to be outlets for that kind of stuff.
it is worth it. All right. Hopefully this wasn't too cringe, but
No, not at all. I think this was a good video. This is a very good video. I think this kind of conversation needs to be had. For everything on my channel where we talk about cringe stuff, where we watch, I don't know, Helsing Abridged or stupid videos about video games or whatever else, I think it's nice to have the occasional video. I know this won't do well. I know my reactionary to this is probably going to be the worst viewed thing on my channel. But I will sit here with my hand on my heart and say, hey, at least we watched something with some substance that I could put some insight into and say that I could have an educational conversation about. Because this, again, at some point there comes an element where, you know, I don't give a fuck whether I earn money from this. I don't give a fuck whether this does well. I don't give a fuck whether this goes viral. The only thing I'm at is that the few people that do watch this gain something from my insight and having watched this together. So, if you enjoyed watching this, I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you understood the notions we were laying down. And I appreciate you tuning in for those who did. So thank you for watching. Jump by the Twitch. Go and subscribe to Jack. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.